Good afternoon, gentlemen. Can I start you off with something to drink?
The restaurant is quiet for a Tuesday afternoon. Mid-tier, clean but unremarkable. The kind of place business travelers choose because it's close to the highway and the food arrives fast. Chris barely notices the hostess leading him and his two junior executives to a booth near the window. He's reviewing acquisition projections on his tablet, half listening to Marcus discuss quarterly forecasts. The waitress approaches with menus tucked under her arm. Her voice is steady, professional, warm in that practiced way service workers perfect. "Good afternoon, gentlemen. Can I start you off with something to drink?" Chris glances up. The world fractures. It's Meryl. His Meryl. The woman who vanished 6 months ago without a word, without a trace, without a single answer to the hundreds of questions that have been eating him alive ever since. She's standing 3 feet away, wearing a burgundy polo shirt and black pants, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup beyond the basics. No jewelry. And she is unmistakably, heavily pregnant. The curve of her belly is prominent beneath the uniform, third trimester obvious, the fabric stretching across a life she's been carrying alone. Their eyes meet. Meryl's expression doesn't crack. No shock, no relief, no tears, no anger. Just a cool, impenetrable boundary, like looking at a stranger through bulletproof glass. She holds her pen poised above her notepad, waiting. Chris cannot speak. His throat closes. His hands begin trembling against the tablet screen. The restaurant noise fades to a hollow ringing in his ears. Marcus notices the silence. "I'll have a coffee. Black. Chris, you want your usual?" Chris's mouth opens, but nothing comes out. Meryl writes Marcus's order with calm efficiency, then looks at Chris with polite expectation. "And for you, sir." "Sir." The word lands like a slap. "Water," Chris manages. His voice sounds strangled, foreign. Meryl nods, writes it down. "I'll have those right out." She turns and walks away. Her gait is careful, the walk of a woman in late pregnancy protecting her center of gravity, but her posture is straight, composed, steady. She moves through the restaurant taking orders, refilling drinks, laughing politely at something an elderly man at the counter says. She doesn't look back at Chris. Not once. He is drowning. 6 months. 6 months of hiring investigators who found nothing. 6 months of unanswered calls and texts. 6 months of his mother telling him to let it go, that Meryl clearly wanted space, that he needed to respect her decision. 6 months of believing she had simply chosen to leave him. But this is something else entirely. She's pregnant. The math is inescapable. 7, maybe 8 months along. The child is his. She has been carrying his baby all this time, alone, working as a waitress in a city 3 states away from everything they built together, and she never told him. Marcus is talking about market positioning, but Chris hears nothing. He watches Meryl move through the restaurant like she belongs here, like this is her life now, like he's just another customer in a booth. The meals arrive. Chris doesn't eat. He can't. He watches Meryl refill water glasses at a table across the room. She smiles at a toddler in a high chair, touches the mother's shoulder gently when the woman apologizes for the mess. There's something different about her, something he can't name. She seems lighter somehow, despite the physical weight she's carrying. Less burdened. When she brings the check, she sets it on the table without meeting Chris's eyes. "Whenever you're ready, no rush." Chris's hand shoots out, catching her wrist gently. "Meryl, please." She goes very still, looks at his hand on her wrist, then at his face. "Let go." Her voice is quiet but absolute. He releases her immediately. "I need to talk to you. You need to leave." She picks up the check presenter. "That's my child." The words come out raw, unplanned. He doesn't mean them as a claim, but they sound like one. Something flickers behind Meryl's eyes. Not anger. Calculation. She's assessing whether this interaction will cost her the fragile peace she's built here. "After my shift, 9 p.m., the parking lot, public space." She pauses. 5 minutes. Before Chris can respond, she walks away. Marcus is staring at him. "Do you know her?" Chris doesn't answer. He leaves cash on the table, more than enough to cover the meal and a substantial tip, and walks out into the afternoon heat. He sits in his rental car in the parking lot for the next 6 hours, unable to leave, unable to think, unable to do anything but replay that moment over and over. The way she looked at him like he was nobody. The curve of her belly carrying a child she never told him about. The absolute control in her voice when she set the terms of their conversation. Meryl had always been soft-spoken, accommodating, the kind of woman who anticipated needs before they were voiced, who smoothed conflicts before they escalated, who made everyone around her comfortable. That woman wouldn't have walked away from him without flinching. That woman would have cried or yelled or something. This Meryl is someone he doesn't recognize, and that terrifies him more than anything else. At 9 p.m., the restaurant lights dim. Chris watches through the window as staff clear tables and count registers. At 9:03, Meryl exits through the back door. She's changed out of her uniform into jeans and an oversized sweater that accommodates her pregnancy. She walks toward his car slowly, one hand resting on her lower back. Chris gets out of the car. They stand under the parking lot lights, the hum of the highway in the distance. Is the baby mine? He needs to hear her say it. Yes. The word is simple. Final. It confirms everything and explains nothing. Why didn't you tell me? Meryl looks at him with something between pity and exhaustion. Because telling you meant telling her, and I couldn't let her take this child from me. Chris feels like he's been punched. My mother, why would she? Ask her. Meryl's voice is flat, drained of emotion. Ask her about the Hartfield contract, about the strategic marriage she arranged while I was still your wife, about the custody preemption plan she built the moment she found out I was pregnant. But the words don't make sense. Chris shakes his head. I don't understand. I know you don't. You never did. There's no malice in her voice, just weary truth. You were so busy building your empire that you never saw what it cost me to be invisible in it. You were never invisible to me. Meryl's laugh is soft and broken. I was a convenience, a well-managed home, a pleasant accessory at business dinners. I loved you, Chris, completely, but you only loved what I did for you. There's a difference. The words cut deeper than any anger could. That's not true. Your mother threatened to take my baby. She had lawyers, fabricated evidence, a whole plan to paint me as mentally unfit, and you, Meryl's voice cracked slightly, the first sign of real emotion. You were so deep in her world, so dependent on her approval, that I knew you'd never choose me over her, so I chose myself. I chose my child. I would have protected you. You didn't even notice when she was destroying me right in front of you. Meryl adjusts her sweater, her hand protective over her belly. I need to go. I have to be up early for the breakfast shift. Can I see you again? Can I be part of this? Chris gestures helplessly toward her pregnancy. Meryl studies him for a long moment. I don't know yet. I need to think about what's safe, for me and for this baby. Meryl, please. 5 minutes are up. She turns toward a small, older sedan parked near the diner's back entrance. Where are you staying? How are you? Do you need anything? She pauses, her back to him. I needed you 6 months ago. I needed you every day of our marriage when your mother was tearing me apart and you said nothing. I don't need you anymore. I built a life without you. She gets in her car and drives away. Chris stands alone in the parking lot as the security lights flicker on. His phone buzzes with messages from his office, from Marcus asking if he's okay, from his assistant confirming tomorrow's meetings. He ignores all of it. He gets back in his car and drives to his hotel, sits on the edge of the bed, pulls out his phone and scrolls through old messages to Meryl, hundreds of them sent in the first months after she disappeared. Where are you? Please, just tell me you're safe. I don't understand what happened. I'm sorry for whatever I did. Please come home. The messages stopped after 3 months. His mother had convinced him it was time to let go, that Meryl had clearly made her choice, that he needed to respect her privacy and move forward, that the business needed his full attention. He had listened. He had stopped searching. He had accepted the narrative that Meryl simply left, but she didn't just leave. She ran. And now he needs to understand why. He opens his laptop and sends an email to a private investigator, someone he's never worked with before, someone who has no connection to his family or his mother's network. The subject line is simple: I need to know the truth. The restaurant encounter happened on a Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, Chris has canceled his remaining meetings and checked into a long-term stay hotel in the city where Meryl is living. He doesn't go back to the restaurant. He doesn't stake out her apartment or follow her. He simply waits for the investigator's report and tries to piece together what his mother could have possibly done that was bad enough to make Meryl disappear. The investigator's preliminary report arrives Thursday evening. It's not comprehensive yet, But there are already troubling details. Large cash withdrawals from Victoria's personal accounts dated 6 to 7 months ago. 5 separate payments ranging from $5,000 to $15,000, all marked vaguely as household consultations. The investigator cross-referenced the dates with former household staff employment records. 3 staff members left Chris's employment within that same 2-week window, all with severance packages that were unusually generous. Chris's stomach turns. He pulls out his phone and calls Margaret, the housekeeper who had worked for his family for 3 years before leaving abruptly last spring. He hasn't spoken to her since she gave notice. The call goes to voicemail. He tries again the next morning. This time, she answers. "Mr. Mercer." Her voice is cautious. "Margaret, I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest with me." Silence. "Did my mother pay you to say something about Merrill?" The silence stretches longer. Then, quietly, "I can't talk about this." "Margaret, please, Merrill is gone. I found her yesterday and she's 7 months pregnant and working as a waitress, and she told me my mother threatened to take the baby. I need to know what happened." He hears her breath catch. "She's okay? Mrs. Merrill?" "She's alive. I don't know if she's okay." Another long pause. Then Margaret says, "Your mother told me it was for Mrs. Merrill's protection, that she was struggling and needed help but wouldn't admit it. She asked me to document some incidents, times when Mrs. Merrill seemed upset or distracted or forgetful." Chris closes his eyes. "Were there incidents?" "Not really. I mean, Mrs. Merrill was always so composed. But your mother said even small things mattered for the medical record, to show a pattern." "What medical record?" "For the evaluation. Your mother said Mrs. Merrill needed a psychological evaluation but wouldn't agree to one voluntarily, so they needed documentation to justify it. She said it was because she cared about her." Chris feels sick. "Did you sign anything?" "An affidavit. Your mother's lawyer drew it up. It just said that I observed Mrs. Merrill having mood swings and seeming overwhelmed. Your mother gave me $10,000 and told me it was for my discretion, that if I talked about it, it would hurt Mrs. Merrill's chances of getting help." "Margaret, those affidavits weren't for help. They were for a custody case. My mother was building a legal argument to take Merrill's baby." Margaret makes a small, choked sound. "Oh God, I thought I was helping." "I know. Thank you for telling me." He hangs up and immediately calls the family attorney, the one who has handled Victoria's personal legal matters for decades. The man answers on the second ring. "Christopher, what can I do for you?" "I need to know about the custody preemption case my mother had you build against Merrill." The line goes very quiet. "I don't know what you're referring to." "Don't lie to me, Richard. I know about the affidavits. I know about the payments. I need to see the file. That was privileged work product for your mother. I can't." "I'm going to ask you one more time, and if you don't cooperate, I'm going to have our corporate counsel initiate an ethics investigation into whether you used your position as family counsel to facilitate fraud and witness tampering. Do you want to reconsider?" Another silence. Then, reluctantly, "I'll send you the file." The file arrives within 2 hours. Chris reads it sitting at the hotel desk, his hands shaking with each page. It's all there. The fabricated affidavits, Margaret's statement and 2 others from staff members who were paid to document concerning behavior. Medical records pulled from the family physician showing Merrill's family history, a cousin who struggled with depression, notes highlighting genetic predisposition to mental health instability. A psychological evaluation framework prepared in advance designed to assess postpartum fitness. A drafted emergency custody motion based on maternal unfitness and risk to child welfare. None of it was ever filed because Merrill disappeared before Victoria could execute the plan. But the intent is crystal clear. His mother was going to take Merrill's baby, legally, systematically, using fabricated evidence and paid testimony. Chris sits in the dark hotel room and realizes the woman he trusted most in his life is a monster. He drives back to the family estate that night. It's late, past midnight, but he knows his mother will be awake. She's always been a night person, preferring to work when the house is quiet. He finds her in her private study, reading glasses perched on her nose, reviewing quarterly reports. She looks up when he enters and smiles. "Christopher, I wasn't expecting you back so soon. How was your trip?" "I found Merrill." Victoria's smile doesn't falter, but something shifts in her eyes. "Calculation. Did you? How unexpected." "She's 7 months pregnant. With my child." Victoria sets down her papers. "I see. You knew." "It's not a question. I suspected. You did more than suspect. You built a custody case to take her baby. You paid staff to lie about her mental state. You fabricated evidence of unfitness. You were going to take my child from the woman I married. Victoria stands, her posture regal. I protected you. You destroyed my marriage. I saved you from a mediocre marriage that would have limited your potential. Victoria's voice is calm, clinical, like she's explaining a business decision. Meryl was adequate for a starter wife, Christopher, but she brought nothing strategic. The Hartfield alliance would have positioned you for generational power. Senator Hartfield's daughter has connections, influence, political access. That contract alone would have been worth $3.2 billion. Chris stares at his mother. You arranged a marriage for me, while I was still married to Meryl. I arranged an opportunity. You would have seen the logic eventually. And when Meryl got pregnant, Victoria waves a hand dismissively. A complication, but manageable. The child would have been cared for. You would have had visitation. Meryl would have been compensated generously for her trouble. Everyone would have benefited. Except Meryl, who would have lost her child. She was always going to lose in the long term, Christopher. I was simply accelerating the inevitable. Victoria sits back down, picking up her papers as if the conversation is over. Meryl was not built for your world. She was too soft, too sentimental, too ordinary. You needed someone who could match your ambition. Chris feels something crack inside him. I loved her. You love the stability she provided, but love is not a business strategy. She's not a business strategy. She was my wife. Was being the operative word. She left. She made her choice. She ran because you terrorized her. Victoria looks at him over her reading glasses. I gave her an out, a generous settlement, an NDA, a chance to start fresh somewhere else. She could have taken it and disappeared quietly without all this drama. Instead, she chose to play the victim. She chose to protect our child from you. And now what, Christopher? You found her. She's clearly doing fine. She's working, she's managing. Let her be. Move forward with the Hartfield arrangement. Stop wasting time on sentiment. Chris takes a step toward his mother's desk. You're removed from the company board, effective immediately. Victoria laughs. Don't be absurd. I've already drafted the resolution. The board votes Monday. You're out. The laughter stops. Victoria's expression hardens. You can't run that company without me. I built it. I secured every major contract, every political connection, every advantage you've ever had. And you nearly destroyed my family to expand it. I won't let you do any more damage. If you push me out, I will make this very difficult for you. I have relationships, leverage, information, and I have evidence of fraud, witness intimidation, conspiracy to commit parental kidnapping, and falsification of legal documents. Try me, mother. See which one of us has more to lose. They stare at each other. A lifetime of power dynamics shifting in real time. Victoria's voice goes cold. You'll regret this. That woman will take everything now that she has leverage. She'll bleed you dry and disappear again. She's not you. Chris turns to leave. She never wanted anything but to be loved, and I failed her, but I won't fail my child. He walks out of his mother's study and doesn't look back. The next morning, Chris drives back to the city where Meryl lives. He doesn't go to the restaurant. He calls instead, asks to speak to the manager. This is Ruth. The voice is older, warm, but wary. My name is Christopher Mercer. I'm Meryl's. I'm her husband. Ex-husband, from what I understand. I need to leave a message for her. Could you? I'm not a message service, Mr. Mercer. Please, I just need her to know that I found out what my mother did. I know about the threats, the custody plan, all of it. I need her to know that I'm handling it, that she doesn't have to be afraid anymore. Ruth is quiet for a moment. You're the reason she showed up here 6 months ago looking like a ghost, working doubles while she was barely keeping food down from morning sickness. Yes. You're the reason she sleeps with her phone off and jumps every time someone mentions lawyers or courts. Yes. Chris's voice breaks. I didn't know. I should have known. I should have protected her, but I didn't, and I'm trying to fix it now. You can't fix 6 months of terror with a phone call, Mr. Mercer. I know, but I can try. Please, just tell her I called. Tell her I know the truth about my mother. Tell her... He stops, trying to find words adequate to the enormity of what he needs to say. Tell her I'm sorry, and that I'll do whatever she needs to feel safe. Ruth sighs. I'll tell her. Don't expect a call back. She hangs up. But 2 hours later, Chris's phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Same park as last time. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Ruth will be with me. Chris arrives at the park 30 minutes early. It's a modest neighborhood park, a playground, walking paths, families with young children scattered across the grass. At exactly 2 p.m., a sedan pulls into the parking lot. Meryl gets out of the passenger side, moving carefully. Ruth exits the driver's side, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that could cut glass. They walk toward the bench where Chris is waiting. Meryl sits. Ruth stands 5 feet away, arms crossed, making it very clear she's not here as decoration. Chris doesn't try to hug Meryl or touch her. He simply sits, leaving space between them. "Thank you for meeting me." Meryl nods. Her hands rest on her belly, protective. "I hired an investigator. I found the emails about the Hartfield contract, the payments to staff. I confronted Margaret and she told me about the affidavits. I got the custody case file from the family attorney." Chris pulls a folder from his bag and sets it on the bench between them. "It's all here, everything my mother was planning." Meryl doesn't touch the folder. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you deserve to know I believe you. You deserve to know I understand why you ran, and you deserve to know that I'm stopping her." "Stopping her how?" "I'm removing her from the company board. I'm severing her access to family legal resources. I'm making it clear that if she comes near you or our child, I'll expose everything she did." Meryl is quiet for a long time, processing. "You confronted her?" "Yes." "And she's just accepting this?" "No, she threatened to make things difficult, but I have evidence she doesn't." Meryl looks at him directly. "Your mother built your entire career, Chris. Every major contract, every political connection. If you cut her off, you lose all of that." "I don't care." "You should care. Your company's everything to you." "It's not worth more than my child." Chris's voice is raw. "It's not worth more than you having to run in the middle of the night because my mother terrorized you." Meryl's eyes shimmer, but she doesn't cry. 6 months ago, I needed you to choose me over her. You didn't." "I know. I needed you to see what she was doing to me. You didn't." "I know. I needed you to protect me, and you were too busy, too distracted, too deep in her world to notice I was disappearing." Meryl's voice trembles slightly. "Do you have any idea what it's like to be invisible to the one person who promised to see you?" Chris feels the words like a physical blow. "No, I don't, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Meryl. I failed you in every way that mattered." They sit in silence. A father pushes his daughter on a swing nearby. The girl's laughter carries across the park. Meryl finally speaks. "What do you want from me?" "I want to know what you need to feel safe. Not what I want, what you need." Meryl studies him, searching for manipulation, for control, for the trap. But Chris's expression is open, devastated, waiting. "I need security, financial, legal, emotional. I need to know that your mother can't touch me or my baby. I need to know that you're not going to disappear the moment your company needs you more than we do. I need—" Her voice breaks. "I need to know that if I let you into this child's life, you'll actually show up. Not just at first when it's new and exciting, but when it's hard, when it's boring, when there's nothing glamorous about it. I'll show up, I promise." Promises are easy, Chris. It's the follow-through that matters. "Then let me prove it. Tell me what you need, and I'll do it." Meryl reaches into her bag and pulls out a business card. "This is my attorney. Ruth connected me with her. She specializes in family law for women in difficult situations. I want you to work with her to set up legal protections. A trust for the baby that your mother can't access. Custody agreements that protect my rights. A restraining order against your mother if necessary." Chris takes the card. "Done. What else?" "I don't want your money for me. I'm supporting myself. But I want our child to have security, education, healthcare, everything they need without me having to negotiate with you or your mother every time something comes up. I'll set up an irrevocable trust. You'll be the sole trustee, complete control." Meryl nods slowly. "And I need you to understand something. I'm not coming back to you. I'm not moving back to that city or that house or that life. I built something here. I have work. I have people who see me. I have peace. I'm not giving that up. I'm not asking you to." "Aren't you?" Chris meets her eyes. "I'm asking for a chance to be a father. Not now. I know I haven't earned that. But eventually, if I can prove I've changed, if I can show you I'm not the man who let you be erased." Meryl stands slowly, one hand on her lower back. "I'll think about it, but I need you to understand, this isn't about you earning your way back into my life. This is about you proving you can be trusted with our child's life. Those are two different things." "I understand." Meryl starts to walk toward Ruth's car, then pauses. Chris? Yeah? The baby's a girl. The words hit him like a tidal wave. A daughter. He has a daughter. What's her name? I haven't decided yet. I'm waiting to meet her first. Meryl walks to the car. Ruth gives Chris one last hard look, assessing, before getting in the driver's seat. They drive away. Chris sits on the bench long after they're gone, holding the attorney's business card, trying to absorb the enormity of what he's learned. He has a daughter. Meryl is giving him a chance, however fragile, to be part of her life, and he has to dismantle everything his mother built to protect them both. He pulls out his phone and starts making calls. First, to the attorney Meryl recommended. He leaves a detailed message outlining what he wants to establish: an irrevocable trust, custody protections, legal barriers against Victoria's interference. Second, to his corporate attorney. He needs the board resolution drafted immediately, removing Victoria from all oversight roles. Third, to his executive assistant. He's relocating temporarily. He'll be working remotely from this city for the foreseeable future. All meetings can be virtual or rescheduled. Fourth, to a real estate agent in this city. He needs a rental, something modest, close to but not invasive of Meryl's space. He's not here to pressure her. He's here to show up. The board vote happens on a Monday morning. Chris attends virtually from his hotel room. He presents the evidence, not all of it, just enough to demonstrate that Victoria used company resources and relationships for personal legal matters that created liability. He frames it as a protective measure, ensuring the company isn't complicit in potential fraud. The board members are largely silent during the presentation. Several of them have worked with Victoria for decades. They've seen her ruthlessness firsthand, benefited from it even. But they've also seen the damage it causes. When the vote is called, it's unanimous. Victoria is removed from the board, effective immediately. Chris receives a single text from his mother an hour later. You'll regret this. He deletes it. Over the next 2 weeks, Chris works with Meryl's attorney to establish the trust. It's substantial, enough to ensure his daughter's entire future: education, healthcare, housing, everything. Meryl is named sole trustee with complete authority over distributions until their daughter turns 18. Victoria's name is explicitly excluded from any access or oversight. He also works with the attorney to draft custody agreements that heavily favor Meryl. He doesn't ask for joint custody or equal time. He asks for visitation rights contingent on Meryl's approval, structured around what feels safe for her and their daughter. When the documents are finalized, Meryl's attorney sends them to her for review. 3 days later, Chris receives a message through the attorney. Meryl has reviewed and approved the trust and custody framework. She's willing to meet with you again. They meet at the same park. This time Ruth isn't with her, though Meryl mentions she's parked nearby just in case. Chris notices Meryl is moving even more carefully now, her pregnancy in its final stretch. She's tired. He can see it in the shadows under her eyes, but there's something else too. A kind of settled strength. Thank you for the trust, Meryl says once they're seated. My attorney said it's more than fair. It's what our daughter deserves. Meryl nods. I'm due in 3 weeks, maybe less. My doctor said the baby's positioned low, so it could be any time. Chris's heart races. Would you want me there when she's born? Meryl is quiet for a long time. I don't know yet. I need to think about it. I understand. But, Meryl pauses, choosing her words carefully. If you want to be involved, really involved, you need to understand what that means. It's not just the big moments. It's the middle of the night feedings and the diaper changes and the endless, boring, exhausting days when nothing exciting happens. It's showing up even when you're tired or busy or would rather be somewhere else. I want that, all of it. Meryl searches his face. Your mother's going to fight this. You know that, right? She's not going to just disappear quietly. Let her fight. I have evidence and I have lawyers. She can't win. She has connections, power. She's been playing this game longer than you have. I'm not playing a game. I'm protecting my family. Meryl looks away, across the park where children are playing on the swings. I loved you, Chris. For so long I loved you so much it hurt. I would have done anything for you. I know. But love isn't supposed to hurt like that. It's not supposed to make you feel like you're disappearing, like you only matter when you're useful. Chris's throat tightens. I made you feel that way. You did, and your mother made it 1,000 times worse, but you let her. That's the part I can't forget. You chose her approval over my humanity, every time. I'm choosing differently now. Are you? Or are you just choosing what's convenient now that the truth is out? Meryl turns to look at him. Because if you're only here out of guilt or obligation, I don't want it. My daughter deserves a father who chooses her, not one who shows up because he has to. I'm here because I want to be, because I should have been all along. Meryl stands. I'll let you know about the birth, but I'm not making any promises beyond that. That's more than I deserve. She walks away, slower than before, one hand pressed to her lower back. Chris watches her go and feels the weight of every moment he failed her, every time he chose wrong, every opportunity he missed to actually see the woman he married. That night, he sits in his rental apartment, a modest one-bedroom in a complex 2 miles from Meryl's place, and tries to imagine what it will be like to meet his daughter, to hold her, to look into her face and explain someday why he wasn't there when her mother needed him most. He doesn't have answers yet, but he knows he'll spend the rest of his life trying to be worthy of the chance Meryl is giving him. 2 days later, Chris receives a text from an unknown number at 4:30 in the morning. In labor, at Mercy General, Ruth is with me. Chris is out the door in under 2 minutes. He drives to the hospital with his hands shaking on the wheel. He doesn't know what he'll find when he gets there. He doesn't know if Meryl will let him in the room or make him wait outside. He doesn't know if this is the beginning of something new or just a moment of crisis where she needed someone to know. But he's going. He's showing up. That's all he knows how to do right now. He parks and runs through the emergency entrance, finds the maternity ward, gives Meryl's name to the nurse at the desk. The nurse checks her computer. Are you family? I'm the father. She directs him to a room on the 3rd floor. He takes the stairs because the elevator feels too slow. When he reaches the room, he stops outside the door, suddenly terrified. He can hear voices inside, Ruth's low, soothing tone, a nurse giving instructions, and Meryl breathing through pain. He knocks softly. Ruth opens the door. She looks exhausted but alert. She said you could come in, but if you upset her, I'm throwing you out myself. Understood. Chris enters the room. Meryl is in the hospital bed, hooked up to monitors, her face flushed and damp with sweat. She's in active labor, clearly in pain, but when she sees him, she doesn't tell him to leave. You came. Of course I came. A contraction hits and Meryl grips the bed rail, breathing through it. Chris moves to her side instinctively, then stops, unsure if touch is welcome. Meryl reaches out and grabs his hand, squeezing hard enough to hurt. He lets her. When the contraction passes, she releases his hand. I don't know why I wanted you here. I'm glad you did. The hours that follow are brutal and beautiful and terrifying. Meryl labors with a strength Chris has never seen in her before, a primal, fierce power. Ruth stays at her other side, coaching her breathing, wiping her face, murmuring encouragement. The nurses come and go, checking dilation, monitoring the baby's heartbeat. Chris stays quiet, unless Meryl addresses him. He offers water when she asks, holds her hand during contractions, steps back when she needs space. He is not the center of this experience. He is a witness to Meryl's strength. At 11:47 in the morning, their daughter is born. The nurse places the baby on Meryl's chest and Meryl starts crying, laughing, overwhelmed. She looks down at this tiny, perfect life and Chris sees something in her face he's never seen before. Complete, unconditional, transformative love. She's here, Meryl whispers. You're here, baby girl. You're safe. The baby makes a small sound, a cry that's more like a question, and Meryl cradles her close. Chris stands a few feet away, tears streaming down his face, watching the two of them. He has never felt more like an outsider and more desperate to belong. After the nurses weigh and measure the baby, after they clean her and check her vitals and declare her healthy, they bring her back to Meryl. Meryl holds her daughter, studying her tiny features, counting her fingers. Then she looks up at Chris. Do you want to meet her? Chris nods, unable to speak. Meryl shifts carefully, and Chris approaches. She places the baby in his arms, showing him how to support her head. This is your daughter, Meryl says softly. Chris looks down at the baby's face. She has dark hair, delicate features, eyes that are trying to focus. She's impossibly small, impossibly perfect. Hi, he whispers. His voice breaks. Hi, sweetheart, I'm your dad. The baby yawns, and Chris feels something crack open in his chest, something he didn't know was closed. This tiny person, this life that exists because of choices he made and choices Meryl made, and 1,000 moments he didn't pay attention to. She's real. She's here. She's his. What's her name? He asks Meryl. Meryl is quiet for a moment, looking at their daughter. Isla. It means island, because she and I were our own world when we needed to be. Chris nods, unable to speak. He understands the weight of that name, the message it carries. Meryl and Isla survived without him. They were their own world, their own unit, complete and whole. He is not essential. He is optional. But maybe, if he proves himself, he can earn a place in that world. Isla, he repeats softly. It's perfect. He holds his daughter for another minute, then carefully hands her back to Meryl. Meryl takes Isla and settles her against her chest, and Chris sees the immediate shift. Meryl relaxes. Isla quiets. They fit together like they've always belonged this way. Ruth touches Chris's shoulder. You should go. Let her rest. Chris nods. He looks at Meryl. Thank you for letting me be here. Meryl doesn't look away from Isla. You're her father. You should meet her. It's not warmth. It's not forgiveness, but it's acknowledgement. It's a door left slightly open. Chris leaves the hospital room. He walks down the corridor, past other families celebrating new arrivals, past nurses congratulating new parents. He finds an empty waiting room and sits down, puts his face in his hand, and finally lets himself break. He has a daughter. A perfect, beautiful daughter who exists because Meryl carried her alone, worked through pregnancy exhaustion alone, faced her fears alone, built a life from nothing to give this child safety. And he wasn't there for any of it. He can't undo that. He can't rewrite the past 6 months or the years of emotional neglect that led to Meryl's disappearance. He can't erase the damage his mother did or his own complicity in that damage. But he can show up now, every day, for as long as Meryl lets him. He pulls out his phone and sends a single message to his executive team. I need to take family leave, effective immediately. I'll be out of office for the next 3 months. The responses come quickly. Confusion, concern, questions about timing and projects and client needs. Chris ignores all of it. He sends one more message, this one to his corporate attorney. Finalize my mother's removal from all family trusts and estate planning. I want her legal access to my assets completely severed. Then he turns off his phone. He goes to the hospital cafeteria, buys a terrible coffee, and sits at a table near the window. Outside, the city is waking up. People rushing to work, to appointments, to lives that have nothing to do with his. Chris thinks about Meryl, asleep upstairs with Isla tucked against her chest. He thinks about Ruth standing guard, making sure no one disturbs them. He thinks about the life Meryl built here, modest, quiet, full of people who saw her worth when he couldn't. He has so much to learn, about being present, about listening, about choosing people over power, about love that doesn't require performance or utility. But for the first time in 6 months, he feels something other than desperation or guilt. He feels purpose. He will show up. He will prove himself. He will earn the right to be part of Isla's life, and maybe, someday, Meryl will trust him enough to let him back into hers, not as her husband. That door is closed, and he understands why. But as someone who finally sees her, who finally understands what he lost, who finally knows the difference between loving someone and loving what they do for you. Chris finishes his coffee and goes back upstairs. He doesn't enter Meryl's room. He simply sits in the waiting area outside the maternity ward, in case she needs anything, in case there's anything he can do. He waits. And for the first time in his life, waiting doesn't feel like wasted time. It feels like the beginning of showing up. Meryl is discharged from the hospital 2 days after giving birth. Ruth drives her home, with Isla secured in a car seat they'd purchased together 3 weeks earlier. Chris offers to help, to drive them, to carry bags. But Meryl declines politely. She needs space. She needs to settle into motherhood without an audience. Chris understands, or he's learning to. He asks only one thing before they leave. Can I visit? Not every day, just when you're ready, when it feels okay. Meryl adjusts Isla's blanket, not looking at him. I'll let you know. It's not a yes, but it's not a no. That has to be enough. Meryl's apartment is small, a 1-bedroom above Ruth's diner. She and Ruth had transformed the living room into a nursery space over the past month. A borrowed crib near the window. A changing table Ruth's daughter donated. A rocking chair from a church donation drive. Everything is secondhand but clean, carefully chosen, full of the quiet love that comes from women who understand what it means to build safety from scraps. Meryl settles Isla into the crib and stands there for a long time, just watching her daughter sleep. The fear she carried for 9 months, the terror that Victoria would somehow find her and take this child, begins to loosen its grip. Isla is here. She's healthy. She's safe. And Meryl built this, alone. The first week of motherhood is brutal in ways Meryl never anticipated. The sleepless nights, the constant feeding, the raw physicality of recovery while caring for a newborn. Ruth checks on her multiple times a day, brings meals, holds Isla so Meryl can shower. The other waitresses from the diner rotate through with supplies and encouragement and stories about their own early days of motherhood. Meryl is exhausted, but she's not alone. On day 4, her phone buzzes with a text from Chris. "How are you both doing?" Meryl stares at the message for a long time before responding. Tired. She's healthy. "Can I bring anything? Diapers? Food? Anything you need?" Meryl almost says no, but then she looks at the dwindling stack of newborn diapers and the nearly empty fridge, and her own pride feels less important than practical help. Diapers, size newborn, and maybe some easy meals, nothing fancy. An hour later, Chris arrives with 4 boxes of diapers, 3 bags of groceries, and an insulated container of soup from a restaurant Ruth mentioned Meryl liked. He leaves everything outside her door, texts to let her know it's there, and leaves without asking to come in. Meryl watches from the window as he walks back to his car. He doesn't look up, doesn't linger, doesn't try to catch a glimpse of her or Isla. He just delivers what she asked for and goes. It's such a small thing, but it's the first time in their entire relationship that Chris has given her something without expecting acknowledgement or access in return. 2 days later, Meryl texts him, "You can visit tomorrow, 2 p.m., 1 hour. Chris arrives at exactly 2 p.m. He's showered, dressed casually, holding nothing. No gifts, no flowers, no grand gestures, just himself. Meryl lets him in. The apartment is small and cluttered with the chaos of new motherhood. Burp cloths draped over furniture, a basket of unfolded laundry, the remnants of her lunch still on the counter. She doesn't apologize for the mess. Isla is asleep in her crib. Chris approaches quietly, looking down at his daughter with an expression Meryl has never seen on him before. Unguarded wonder. "She's gotten bigger already," he whispers. That's what they do. They stand side by side, watching Isla sleep. The silence isn't comfortable exactly, but it's not hostile either. "How are you?" Chris asks. Exhausted, overwhelmed, terrified I'm doing everything wrong. Meryl surprises herself with the honesty. "You're not doing anything wrong. She's here, she's healthy, that's because of you." Meryl feels tears prick her eyes and blinks them away. Hormones and sleep deprivation are making her emotional about everything. Isla begins to stir, making small fussing sounds. Meryl picks her up, checks her diaper, realizes she's hungry. She settles into the rocking chair and begins to nurse, draping a blanket over her shoulder for privacy. Chris looks away, giving her space, and busies himself clearing her lunch dishes from the counter. "You don't have to do that," Meryl says. "I know." He washes the dishes quietly, then wipes down the counter. He doesn't ask permission. He just does it. When he's finished, he sits on the couch across from her, maintaining respectful distance. "My mother tried to call me 17 times this week," Chris says quietly. Meryl's hand stills on Isla's back. "What did she want?" "I don't know. I didn't answer." "She's not going to just disappear, Chris." "I know. But she doesn't get to control this. She doesn't get access to you or Isla. That's not negotiable." Meryl studies him. "She built your whole life, your company, your connections, everything. Are you really willing to lose all of that?" "I'm not losing anything that matters." "Your board might disagree." The board voted to remove her, unanimously. They've seen what she's capable of. They understand the liability. Meryl shifts Isla to her other side. "And your business? The contracts she secured? Some of them will probably fall through. The Hartfield deal is definitely dead, but the company will survive. And even if it doesn't," Chris meets her eyes, "I'd rather lose everything I built than lose the chance to know my daughter." It's the right thing to say. But Meryl has heard Chris say right things before, back when they were married, right before he'd prioritize a business trip over a conversation or his mother's opinion over Meryl's needs. Words are easy. It's the sustained action that reveals truth. "Your hour's almost up," Meryl says. Chris checks his watch. "Can I come back? Maybe in a few days?" I'll let you know. He stands, moves toward the door, then pauses. Thank you. For letting me meet her. For giving me any chance at all. You're her father. I'm not trying to keep her from you. I'm just trying to keep us both safe. I understand. After he leaves, Meryl sits in the rocking chair with Isla and tries to sort through the tangle of feelings in her chest. Exhaustion and fear, and a tiny, dangerous seed of hope that maybe Chris really is different now. That maybe he's finally learning what it means to show up. But hope is terrifying. Hope is what got her hurt before. So she tucks it away and focuses on the only thing that matters. The small, perfect life in her arms who depends on her completely. Over the next 3 weeks, Chris visits 4 more times. Always at Meryl's invitation. Always for exactly the time she specifies. He doesn't overstay. He doesn't push for more. He shows up, holds Isla when Meryl offers, helps with dishes or laundry or whatever small tasks need doing, and leaves when his time is up. He's learning to be useful without being invasive, to offer help without demanding gratitude, to exist in Meryl's space without trying to control it. It's so different from the man she married that Meryl sometimes feels like she's meeting a stranger. During his 5th visit, Isla is fussy, fighting sleep, and Meryl is at her wit's end. She's been up since 4 a.m. She hasn't showered in 2 days. She can feel herself fraying. Chris takes Isla from her arms. Go take a shower. I've got her. She needs... I'll figure it out. Go. Meryl wants to argue, to list all the things he needs to know to maintain control, but she's so tired, and the thought of a shower sounds like heaven. She goes. When she emerges 20 minutes later, clean and slightly more human, she finds Chris pacing the living room with Isla against his shoulder, humming something tuneless. Isla is quiet, her eyes heavy. You got her to settle, Meryl says, surprised. Turns out walking and humming works. Ruth told me to try it. You talked to Ruth? I've been asking her for advice. She knows more about babies than I do, which is everything. Chris carefully transfers Isla to her crib. She fusses for a moment, then settles. Meryl watches him, this man who once had assistants manage every detail of his life, now taking parenting advice from a diner owner and successfully soothing a colicky infant. Thank you, she says quietly. You don't have to thank me. This is what parents do. You're learning. I have a lot to learn. That night, after Chris leaves, Meryl allows herself to acknowledge something she's been avoiding. Chris is trying, really trying, not with grand gestures or expensive gifts, but with consistent, humble presence. He's showing up in the small, unsexy ways that actually matter. It doesn't erase the past. It doesn't undo the years of neglect or his mother's cruelty, or the terror Meryl felt when she ran. But it's something. The first real test comes 6 weeks after Isla's birth. Meryl is back at work part-time, doing the morning shift at the diner while Ruth watches Isla upstairs. It's her 3rd day back and she's still adjusting to the physical demands of waitressing while recovering from childbirth and managing minimal sleep. She's refilling coffee when her phone buzzes in her apron pocket. She ignores it until her break, then checks the message. It's from a number she doesn't recognize. You can't hide forever, dear. We need to discuss arrangements for my granddaughter. Victoria. Meryl's hands go cold. She reads the message 3 times, her heart racing. She hasn't heard from Victoria since before she disappeared. She changed her phone number, her address, everything. But somehow Victoria found her. She texts Chris immediately. Your mother just contacted me. Her phone rings within seconds. Chris, what did she say? Meryl reads him the message, her voice shaking. Block the number, right now, and forward me the screenshot. Chris, she knows where I am. She doesn't. She's fishing. If she knew where you were, she'd show up in person. She's trying to scare you into responding. It's working. I'm coming over. Are you at the diner? Yes, but I'll be there in 15 minutes. He arrives in 12. Meryl is on break, sitting at the back booth with Ruth, who's holding Isla. Chris slides into the booth across from them. Show me the message. Meryl hands him her phone. Chris studies it, his jaw tight. This is from a burner app, untraceable number. She's trying to intimidate you without revealing how she got contact information. How did she get my number? I don't know, but I'll find out. Chris takes a screenshot, then blocks the number on Meryl's phone. Don't respond, don't engage, she wants a reaction. What if she finds us? What if she shows up here? Ruth speaks up. Then I call the police. I've got a lawyer on speed dial who specializes in harassment cases. Victoria Mercer doesn't scare me. Chris looks at Ruth with something like respect. I'm filing for a restraining order today. I should have done it weeks ago. Will that stop her? Meryl asks. It'll make it illegal for her to contact you. If she violates it, she faces criminal charges. She's ruthless, but she's not stupid. She won't risk her reputation for a fight she can't win. Meryl wants to believe him, but she's seen what Victoria is capable of. The woman doesn't lose. She redefines the game until she wins. I need to get back to work, Meryl says, standing. Chris catches her hand gently. I won't let her hurt you, I promise. Meryl pulls her hand back. You promised to protect me before. When we were married, you didn't. The words land like a blow. Chris absorbs them without defense. You're right, I didn't, but I'm not asking you to trust my promises. I'm asking you to watch my actions. I'll file the restraining order today. I'll hire security if I need to. I'll do whatever it takes. Meryl nods and goes back to work. But her hands shake as she pours coffee and her eyes keep darting to the door, waiting for Victoria to walk through. Chris stays in the diner for the next 3 hours. He sits at the counter with his laptop, working remotely, maintaining visible presence. When Meryl's shift ends, he walks her upstairs to her apartment, checks the locks, and only leaves when she assures him she's okay. That night, Meryl triple checks every lock and sleeps with Isla's crib pulled close to her bed. The restraining order is filed the next day. Chris's attorney serves it through official channels, making it a matter of legal record. Victoria is prohibited from contacting Meryl, approaching her residence or workplace, or coming within 500 feet of her or Isla. For 2 weeks, there's silence. Then Victoria makes her move. But she doesn't contact Meryl. She goes after Chris. She calls an emergency shareholder meeting, leveraging old alliances and relationships Chris thought were severed. She claims Chris is experiencing a personal crisis that's affecting his judgment, that he's made impulsive decisions regarding company leadership without proper board consultation, that his recent behavior suggests instability. She's trying to paint him as unfit, to force the board to reinstate her oversight, to regain control through institutional channels. Chris learns about the meeting from his CFO, who calls him at 6 a.m. She's got Hartfield backing her, and Preston, and at least 4 other major shareholders. She's claiming you've abandoned your responsibilities for a personal vendetta. Chris closes his eyes. When's the meeting? Tomorrow, 2 p.m. You need to be there. I'll be there. He hangs up and immediately calls Meryl. My mother's trying to force a shareholder vote to reinstate her. I have to go back tomorrow, to the main office. Meryl's voice is careful. Okay. I don't want to leave you and Isla here without... We'll be fine. Ruth's here. I have the restraining order. Go handle your business. Meryl, if I lose this vote, she gets access to company resources again. She could use that against you. Then don't lose. It's not that simple. She's been working these relationships for decades. She knows exactly how to manipulate. Chris, Meryl's voice cuts through his spiral. I survived 6 months alone while pregnant, working double shifts, terrified every day that she'd find me. I can handle a few days while you deal with your board. Do what you need to do. There's strength in her voice that steadies him. I'll call you after the meeting. Good luck. The shareholder meeting is brutal. Victoria arrives dressed impeccably, her presence commanding the room. She's prepared a presentation documenting Chris's recent decisions, his removal of her from the board without proper consultation, his sudden departure for personal leave, his redirection of family trust assets, his termination of key vendor relationships she'd cultivated. She frames it as erratic behavior, a son having a crisis, a leader who's lost perspective. I'm concerned about Christopher, she says, her voice full of maternal worry. He's always been susceptible to emotional manipulation, and I fear he's made decisions recently that prioritize personal drama over shareholder value. Several board members nod. They're hearing what they want to hear, a simple narrative where the problem is Chris's judgment, not Victoria's misconduct. When it's Chris's turn to speak, he doesn't defend himself emotionally. He presents evidence, the fabricated affidavits, the payments to staff, the custody preemption file, the communications about the Hartfield marriage arrangement conducted while he was still married. My mother didn't just interfere in my personal life, Chris says calmly. She used company resources, company counsel, and company relationships to facilitate what amounts to witness tampering, fraud, and conspiracy. She created legal liability that could have exposed this company to massive lawsuits. I removed her from the board to protect this company, not to punish her. The room goes very quiet. Victoria's expression doesn't change. Christopher is misrepresenting private family matters as corporate issues. This is exactly the kind of confusion I'm concerned about. But Chris isn't finished. He pulls up emails, dates, documentation. He shows how Victoria used the company's legal retainer for personal matters, how she leveraged business relationships for personal vendettas, how she positioned company strategy around her personal ambitions rather than shareholder interests. One board member, an older woman who's worked with Victoria for 20 years, finally speaks. "Victoria, is this true? Did you use firm resources for a custody case?" Victoria's mask slips for just a moment. "I was protecting family interests." That's not a denial. The vote is called. It's not unanimous this time, but it's decisive. Victoria's reinstatement is denied. Her removal from all company oversight is upheld, and the board votes to sever her access to company legal and financial resources permanently. Victoria stands, collects her materials, and walks out without another word. But as she passes Chris, she leans in close enough that only he can hear. "You'll never be free of me. I'm your mother. That doesn't change." "No," Chris says quietly. "But my obligation to protect you ended when you threatened my child. That doesn't change either." Victoria leaves. Chris sits through the rest of the meeting, answering questions, reassuring shareholders, rebuilding confidence. It takes 3 hours. When it's finally over, he's exhausted, but something has fundamentally shifted. He chose Meryl and Isla over his mother's approval. Publicly, irrevocably. He texts Meryl from the parking lot. Vote upheld. She's out, permanently. Meryl's response comes a few minutes later. "Good. When are you coming back?" "Not if. When." Chris feels something loosen in his chest. "Tomorrow morning. Can I see you both?" "Come for dinner. 6 p.m., nothing fancy." Chris drives back that night instead of waiting for morning. He arrives at Meryl's apartment at 5:58 p.m., holding a bag of groceries he picked up on the way. Meryl opens the door. She's wearing leggings and an old sweatshirt, her hair in a messy bun. She looks tired and beautiful and real. "You brought food," she observes. "You said nothing fancy. I got stuff for pasta." She lets him in. They cook together in her small kitchen, not talking much, just moving around each other in the limited space. Chris boils water while Meryl chops vegetables. Isla sleeps in her bouncer nearby, the picture of peace. It's so domestic, so ordinary, so completely unlike anything they ever had in their marriage. Back then, they had a chef and formal dining and meals that were scheduled around Chris's calls. They never cooked together. They never just existed in comfortable silence. This is different. Smaller, better. They eat at Meryl's tiny table, Isla now awake and making small cooing sounds from her bouncer. "How bad was the meeting?" Meryl asks. "Bad, but not as bad as it could have been. She tried to make me look unstable. I showed evidence of her misconduct. The board sided with me. And now? Now she's legally cut off from company resources. She can't use business leverage against you. The restraining order holds. She's out." Meryl twirls pasta on her fork. "You really burned that bridge." "It needed to be burned. Your whole career was built on her connections. Then I'll build something else, something that's actually mine." Meryl looks at him across the table. "You sound different." "I feel different." They're quiet for a moment. Then Isla starts fussing. Meryl stands to get her, but Chris gestures for her to stay. "Let me." He picks up Isla, settles her against his shoulder, and walks her around the small living room. Meryl watches from the table. This man who once had assistants handle everything now confidently soothing his infant daughter. "You're getting good at that," she says. "I've been practicing. Ruth's been giving me lessons when I visit." "You visit Ruth?" "A couple times a week. She lets me hold Isla while you're working, teaches me feeding schedules and how to change diapers properly and what different cries mean." Chris looks embarrassed. "I asked her to. I figured if I'm going to be a real father, I should actually know what I'm doing." Something shifts in Meryl's chest. This is what she needed to see. Not grand promises or expensive gestures, but Chris humbling himself to ask a diner owner for parenting help. Chris showing up consistently when Meryl isn't even there to witness it. Chris learning to care for Isla not to impress anyone, but because it matters. "Thank you," Meryl says quietly. "For what?" "For trying, really trying." Chris meets her eyes. I'm not trying to earn my way back into your life, Meryl. I know that door is closed. I'm just trying to be someone Isla can count on, someone who shows up. And that's when Meryl realizes something crucial. Chris has stopped performing. He's not trying to win her back or prove himself worthy or manipulate her emotions. He's just showing up for his daughter, consistently, humbly, without expectation of reward. It's the first truly selfless thing she's ever seen him do. The months that follow establish a rhythm. Chris visits 3 times a week, scheduled around Meryl's work and Isla's needs. He never pushes for more time. He never shows up unannounced. He respects Meryl's boundaries absolutely. He takes Isla for walks so Meryl can nap. He handles middle-of-the-night diaper changes when he's there for evening visits. He sits quietly in the corner during Isla's pediatric appointments, asking questions and taking notes. He's learning to be a father not through instinct but through deliberate, sustained effort, and slowly, carefully, Meryl begins to trust him. Not with her heart. That's still too damaged, too wary. But with their daughter, with the practical realities of Xio parenting, with showing up. Victoria makes no further contact. The restraining order holds. Chris hears through family connections that she's relocated to her vacation home in another state, maintaining distance either out of respect for the legal boundaries or out of strategic retreat. Either way, the threat of her presence fades. Meryl starts sleeping through the night again. The hypervigilance that kept her checking locks and jumping at unexpected sounds begins to ease. She's still cautious, still protective, but the constant terror loosens its grip, and she starts to rebuild herself beyond just survival. She picks up her sketching again, drawing while Isla naps. Small things at first. Isla's tiny hands. The view from her window. The regulars at the diner. Ruth notices and makes a suggestion. You should show these to Marcus at the community center. They're looking for an art instructor for the women's program. Meryl hesitates. I haven't taught in years. So, you're an artist. These women need someone who understands rebuilding. You're perfect. Meryl takes the sketches to the community center. Marcus, the program director, loves them. He offers her a teaching position, 2 evenings a week, working with women in transition, domestic violence survivors, recent divorcees, women rebuilding after loss. It's not much money, but it's hers. It's art. It's purpose, beyond survival. She tells Chris about the job during one of his visits. That's incredible, he says, genuine pride in his voice. When do you start? Next week. Ruth's going to watch Isla during the classes. Or I could, if you want, if the timing works. Meryl considers. Letting Chris take Isla for regular, scheduled childcare is different from supervised visits. It's real trust. The class is Thursday nights, 6 to 8. I'll be here at 5:45. And he is. Every Thursday for the next 3 months, Chris arrives early, takes Isla, and cares for her while Meryl teaches. He doesn't ask Meryl about the class or push for details about her life. He just shows up, handles his daughter competently, and leaves when Meryl returns. Consistent, reliable, present. It's such a stark contrast to the man who once canceled dinner plans because a conference call ran late, who missed their anniversary because of a business trip, who never remembered her birthday without his assistant's reminder. One Thursday evening, Meryl comes home from teaching to find Chris asleep on her couch with Isla asleep on his chest. They're both breathing deeply, peaceful. Meryl stands in the doorway watching them and feels something dangerous bloom in her chest. Not love, not yet, but possibility. The fragile, terrifying thought that maybe Chris really has changed. That maybe the man she's seeing now is who he actually is beneath the layers of his mother's control and corporate ambition. She gently lifts Isla from his chest. Chris wakes, disoriented. Sorry, I didn't mean to fall asleep. It's fine. She's out cold. You clearly wore her out. Chris sits up, rubbing his face. How was class? Good. We're working on self-portraits, asking the women to draw how they see themselves versus how they want to be seen. That's powerful. It's terrifying for them, and beautiful. Meryl settles Isla into her crib. Thank you for watching her. I love watching her. Chris stops, emotion catching in his throat. She's the best thing I've ever been part of. Meryl sits in the rocking chair, suddenly exhausted. You're good with her. I didn't expect that. I didn't either, but she makes it easy. She just needs someone to show up. Chris pauses. I wish I'd understood that with you, that showing up was all you ever wanted. Meryl looks at him. I wanted to be seen, not for what I could do for you, but for who I was underneath all the doing. I see you now. Do you? Or do you see who you need me to be so you can be Isla's father? Chris considers the question seriously. 6 months ago, I would have seen what I needed to see, but I've been in therapy, working on— He stops, looking embarrassed. On what? On understanding why I couldn't see you before, why I let my mother control everything, why I confused love with utility. Chris looks down at his hands. My therapist says I was raised to view relationships as transactional, that my mother taught me people's value is in what they provide, and I applied that to you without even realizing it. Meryl feels tears prick her eyes. That's exactly what you did. I know, and I'm sorry. I don't expect the apology to fix anything, but I need you to know I understand what I did, and I'm trying to be different. I can see that. They sit in silence for a moment. Then Chris stands. I should go. Let you rest. Chris? He pauses at the door. Would you want to have dinner here on Sunday, with me and Isla, like a family dinner? The words hang in the air. It's the first time Meryl has initiated something beyond scheduled childcare. It's a test, maybe, or an opening. Chris's face transforms. I'd really like that. Nothing fancy, just dinner. I'll bring dessert. Sunday dinner becomes a weekly tradition. Nothing romantic, just the three of them sharing a meal, talking about their weeks, existing together without agenda. Chris learns Meryl's stories, the ones he never asked about during their marriage. Her childhood, her love of art, her dreams before they got buried under the weight of being his wife. And Meryl learns about the work Chris is doing in therapy, the ways he's restructuring his company to be less dependent on his mother's old connections, the life he's trying to build that's based on actual values instead of inherited ambition. They're learning each other like new people, because in many ways, they are. During one of these dinners, Meryl asks the question that's been hovering unspoken. Do you resent me for leaving, for taking this time from you with Isla? Chris is quiet for a long time. No, I resent myself. You did what you had to do to survive. I made that necessary. If I resent anyone, it's the man I was who drove you away. That's a therapy answer. It's also the truth. Chris looks at her. I lost 6 months with my daughter because I spent years not seeing my wife. That's on me, not you. Meryl nods, something easing in her chest. 3 months later, Meryl makes a decision. She invites Chris to move closer, not in with her, but nearby, so he can be more present without the 2-hour drive from his main residence. There's an apartment in this complex that just opened up, 2 floors down, if you wanted to. I mean, you don't have to, but it would make visits easier for Isla. Chris doesn't hesitate. I'll take it. He moves in 2 weeks later, and the rhythm of their CO parenting shifts again. Chris can pop up for morning visits before work. Meryl can call him when Isla's sick and she needs backup. They can trade off childcare more fluidly. They're building something, not a marriage, not a romance, but a genuine partnership centered on their daughter. And somewhere in that building, Meryl starts to heal. The wounds from emotional neglect, from betrayal, from terror, they don't disappear. But they stop defining every moment. She remembers how to trust, how to hope, how to believe that someone can change if they do the work. Isla's first birthday arrives. Meryl plans a small party at Ruth's diner. Just close friends, a few women from her art class, Ruth and her family, and Chris. Chris arrives early to help set up. He hangs streamers and arranges chairs and sets out the small cake Ruth baked. He's learned where things are kept in the diner kitchen. He knows Ruth's system. He's part of this community now, not as an outsider, but as someone who's earned his place through consistency. Isla, wearing a small birthday crown Ruth fashioned from construction paper, smashes her cake with gleeful abandon. Meryl takes photos, laughing, and Chris stands beside her, equally delighted. For a moment, they're just parents celebrating their child. The weight of their history falls away. There's only this moment, this joy, this small perfect life they created. After the party, after the guests leave and the diner is cleaned and Isla's asleep in her stroller, Meryl and Chris sit in a booth sharing leftover cake. Thank you, Meryl says, for being here, for all of it. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Meryl believes him, and that's when she realizes something has shifted. She's not afraid anymore, not of Victoria, not of trusting Chris, not of the future. She built a life strong enough to withstand anything, and Chris has proven, through sustained action over months, that he's changed. I've been thinking, Meryl says carefully. About next steps. Chris goes very still. Okay. I'm not saying I want to get back together. I'm not ready for that. I don't know if I'll ever be. I understand. But I think maybe we could try being friends, real friends, not just co-parents who tolerate each other, people who actually know each other. A slow smile spreads across Chris's face. I'd like that. It doesn't mean we're together. It means I'm willing to see if the person you're becoming is someone I want in my life beyond Isla. That's more than I deserve. Probably, but Isla deserves a father who's present, and maybe I deserve to see if healing is possible. Chris reaches across the table, then stops, asking permission with his eyes. Meryl nods. He takes her hand, gently. I won't let you down again. You might. People aren't perfect, but if you do, you have to own it. No more letting things slide or avoiding hard conversations or letting your work be more important than showing up. Deal. They sit there, hands joined across the table, and it feels like a beginning. Not of romance, but of something equally valuable. Genuine partnership, mutual respect, the possibility of building something new from the ashes of what failed. Isla stirs in her stroller, making small waking sounds. Meryl releases Chris's hand and goes to her daughter. Chris watches them, his heart so full it aches. He has a daughter who knows his face, who reaches for him, who calls him Dada. He has an ex-wife who's giving him a chance to earn her trust. He has a life that's smaller than what his mother envisioned, but infinitely more meaningful. And for the first time in his life, he understands the difference between having everything and having what matters. The narrator's voice shifts, becoming more intimate, more direct, speaking not from within the story but from outside it, addressing the audience with gentle authority. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from someone you love, not because you stopped loving them, but because staying would mean losing yourself. And Meryl understood something that took Chris years to learn. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot love someone else well if you've erased yourself to make room for them. What Meryl did, vanishing in the middle of the night while pregnant and terrified, wasn't abandonment. It was survival. It was choosing the fierce, protective love of a mother over the slow death of being unseen. And that choice, that impossible, terrifying choice saved her. It saved Isla. And ultimately, it saved Chris from becoming the man his mother raised him to be. Because here's the truth about emotional neglect. It doesn't announce itself. There's no single moment where someone looks at you and says, I don't value you. It's quieter than that. It's the conversation that gets cut short because of a work call. It's the important event they miss because something else took priority. It's the way your feelings become inconvenient. Your needs become demanding, your presence becomes background noise, and over time, you start to believe the lie that you're too much, too needy, too sensitive, that if you could just be easier, simpler, less complicated, then you'd be loved the way you deserve. But that's not love. That's negotiation, and you should never have to negotiate your worth with someone who claims to love you. Meryl learned this the hardest way. She gave everything she had to a man who loved what she did for him, but never learned to love who she was. And his mother saw that devotion as weakness, something to be exploited and discarded when it was no longer useful. So Meryl made a choice, not between Chris and her child, but between self-erasure and self-preservation, between disappearing into someone else's story and writing her own. And that choice, that reclamation of her own identity, is what finally broke through to Chris. Not her devotion, not her sacrifices, but her absence. The hole she left when she chose herself forced him to finally see what he'd had and destroyed through neglect. Now let me share something with you that I need you to understand deeply, to carry with you into your own life. Because Meryl's story isn't just about her. It's about every person who's ever loved someone more than they loved themselves. Every person who's made themselves smaller to make someone else comfortable. Every person who's stayed too long in a space that was slowly suffocating them. You are not responsible for other people's inability to see your worth. You are not too much for wanting to be cherished. You are not selfish for choosing yourself when everyone else is choosing themselves too. And if you're in a relationship right now where you feel invisible, where your needs are always secondary, where you're performing and managing and anticipating and exhausting yourself to earn scraps of attention, I need you to hear this. That is not love. That is not partnership. That is not what you deserve. Real love doesn't require you to disappear. It doesn't ask you to edit yourself down to a palatable version. It doesn't make you feel like you're always one mistake away from losing everything. Real love sees you on your worst days, when you're difficult and complicated and fully human, and it chooses you anyway, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, right now. Are you in a relationship where you feel seen, where your feelings matter as much as theirs, where you can tell the truth without fearing abandonment? If the answer is no, if you're reading these questions and feeling that sick knot in your stomach because you know you've always known, then you have a choice to make. The same choice Meryl made, between staying small and choosing yourself, between enduring and protecting your own heart. And I know that choice is terrifying. I know you love them. I know you've invested years, maybe decades. I know walking away feels impossible. But staying in a relationship that requires you to erase yourself is a different kind of impossible. It's the slow, daily impossible of waking up and pretending you don't need what you need, of silencing yourself, of becoming a ghost in your own life. Meryl chose differently. She chose the hard, terrifying freedom of being alone over the suffocating safety of being unseen. And that choice saved her life. So I'm praying for you right now. If you're in a season where you need to choose yourself, where you need to walk away from someone you love because staying means losing who you are, I'm praying for courage, for clarity, for the bone deep knowing that you deserve more than crumbs of affection. I'm praying that you find people who celebrate you, not just tolerate you, who see your worth without you having to perform for it, who show up not because you're useful, but because you matter. I'm praying for the strength to set boundaries, to say no, to walk away when walking away is the only way to survive. And I'm praying that you learned what Meryl learned. Your worth is not negotiable. It's not conditional. It's not earned. It simply is. You are valuable because you exist, not because of what you do or how you serve or how perfectly you perform the roles someone assigned you. You are inherently, permanently, unquestionably worthy of being seen, being cherished, being loved well. And anyone who can't see that, who takes your devotion for granted, who treats your love like it's infinite and free, they don't deserve access to your heart. So choose yourself, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Choose the life where you're whole over the relationship where you're erased. Choose your voice over their comfort. Choose your future over their convenience. You deserve a love that doesn't cost you yourself. And until you have that, you're better off alone, rebuilding in the quiet, becoming whole again. May you find the courage to walk away from what diminishes you. May you trust yourself enough to know when enough is enough. May you build a life so full, so rich, so authentically yours that other people's inability to see you becomes irrelevant. You are seen. You are valued. You are loved exactly as you are, and your choice to honor that truth is sacred. Now let me show you what happened when Meryl fully embraced that truth. 18 months after Isla's birth, Meryl's life looks completely different. She's standing in her own small art gallery, a space she and Ruth opened together 6 months ago. It's called Reclaim, and it specializes in work by emerging artists, many of them women rebuilding after trauma. The gallery is modest but beautiful. Exposed brick walls, warm lighting, carefully curated pieces that tell stories of survival and transformation. Tonight is an opening reception for a local artist, a woman who spent a decade in an abusive marriage and is now painting her way back to wholeness. Meryl moves through the small crowd, greeting guests, explaining the artist's process, making connections. She's wearing a simple black dress, her hair down, her whole presence radiating quiet confidence. This is her space, her vision, her work. Isla, now 18 months old, toddles around the gallery under Ruth's watchful eye, charming visitors with her bright smile and her tendency to curate by moving small sculptures to different pedestals. Chris arrives just as the artist is giving a short talk about her work. He stays in the back, not wanting to intrude, just watching Meryl in her element. She's radiant, not in the performative way she was during their marriage, when she was always managing his needs, but in a genuine, grounded way. She's fully herself. After the crowd thins and the artist has sold 3 pieces, tearfully thanking Meryl for the opportunity, Chris approaches. "This is incredible," he says, gesturing to the gallery. "You did this." "Ruth and I did this," Meryl corrects. "She handled the business side. I curated. It's perfect." Isla spots Chris and squeals, running to him on unsteady toddler legs. He scoops her up, kisses her forehead, and she babbles happily about the pictures she's been seeing. "Pictures," Meryl translates, smiling. She's got good taste. Ruth appears from the back office, sees Chris, and nods with grudging approval. She's softened toward him over the past year, not because he charmed her, but because he proved himself through consistent, humble presence. You staying for cleanup? Ruth asks Chris, if that's okay. Fine. You know where the broom is? After the last guests leave and the gallery is cleaned, Ruth takes Isla upstairs to the apartment above the gallery, the space that's become Meryl's home. It's larger than her old place, with room for Isla's growing collection of toys and books, and a corner designated as Meryl's studio. Meryl and Chris stand in the quiet gallery, the artwork lit softly around them. I'm proud of you, Chris says. You're amazing. Thank you. Meryl adjusts a frame that's slightly crooked. It feels good, building something that's mine. Can I ask you something? Sure. Chris takes a breath. Would you want to have dinner next week? Just the two of us, not co-parenting, not about Isla, just us talking, as people who are maybe becoming friends. Meryl considers. Over the past 18 months, she and Chris have built something unexpected. Not romance, but genuine respect, mutual support, the slow, careful reconstruction of trust. He's been consistent, humble, present. He's shown up in the unsexy daily ways that actually matter. Okay, she says, but I'm paying for my own meal. Why? Because this isn't a date. It's two friends having dinner, and friends split the check. Chris smiles. Fair enough. They stand there, the history between them heavy but no longer crushing. They've both changed. Meryl is no longer the woman who erased herself to fit his life. Chris is no longer the man who couldn't see past his own ambition. They're new people, and maybe these new people can build something real. Chris? Meryl says quietly. Yeah? Thank you for doing the work, for changing. I know it wasn't easy. Losing you was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it was also the wake-up call I needed, so thank you for being brave enough to leave, for choosing yourself, for teaching me what it actually means to show up. Meryl nods, tears pricking her eyes. Upstairs, Isla starts crying. Ruth's voice carries down, soothing but tired. Meryl smiles. That's my cue. Mine too. I'll see you Thursday for my night with Isla. 5:45. I'll be here. And he is. Every Thursday. Every Sunday for family dinner. Every time Meryl needs backup or Isla needs her father. Chris shows up. Consistently. Without fanfare. Without expecting praise. He's learned what Meryl needed him to understand all along. Love isn't about grand gestures. It's about the daily, unglamorous choice to be present. To see someone. To honor their worth. To show up. And slowly, carefully, Meryl allows herself to hope that maybe, someday, they could be more than friends. More than CO parents. Maybe they could be partners who actually see each other. But she's not rushing. She's learned the value of patience. Of protecting her peace. Of refusing to settle for anything less than genuine reciprocal love. She's whole now. With or without Chris. And that wholeness, that sovereignty over her own life, is the greatest victory of all. Meryl picks up Isla, who's now rubbed-eyed and ready for bed, and carries her to their apartment. Chris watches them go, then walks to his own apartment 2 floors down. His life is smaller than what his mother envisioned. His company is successful, but not empire-sized. His social circle is modest. His ambitions are grounded in relationships rather than acquisitions. But he's happy, genuinely happy, for the first time in his life, because he finally understands having everything means nothing if you can't see the people you love. And being seen, really seen, is worth more than any empire. He falls asleep thinking about next week's dinner with Meryl, not as a romantic prospect, though he hopes for that someday, but as a person he genuinely wants to know. A woman who's extraordinary not because of what she does for him, but because of who she is. And that shift in perspective, that fundamental rewiring of how he values people, is the real transformation. Not the therapy, or the legal battles, or the public confrontations, but the quiet internal work of learning to see worth that isn't tied to utility. Chris is becoming the man Meryl deserved all along. And whether or not she ever takes him back, he'll spend the rest of his life being worthy of their daughter's trust. That's enough. That has to be enough. And maybe, just maybe, it's everything. If this story touched something in you, if you saw yourself in Meryl's courage, or recognized the pattern of emotional neglect, or felt the weight of choosing yourself over someone you love, I want you to know you're not alone. These stories matter. Your story matters. And I'm here every week bringing you narratives about people who chose dignity over defeat, who reclaimed their power, who refused to let their past define their future. Subscribe to Billionaire's Romance Stories by Dennis. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. Leave a comment and tell me what resonated. Was it Meryl's decision to leave? Ruth's protective friendship? Chris's journey toward accountability? Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you are not invisible. You are not too much. You deserve a love that sees you fully and chooses you consistently. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, choose yourself. Always.